Conservatories, also known as orangeries, may be thought of by most people today as the big glass rooms in old haunted mansions where wealthy heirs gather to be murdered under mysterious circumstances during thunderstorms. In fact, these rooms were part of the perfected design of the old world mansions that make up the so-called millionaire rows that were built in towns and cities across the New World and in Europe as well in centuries past. Now, to understand the genius behind these features of the buildings, we will examine why they were created, and thus we can preserve the architectural ideas here for future generations and make up for the wanton destruction of our historical heritage. We've seen the pictures of some examples, and while the pictures are worth 1,000 words, somebody has to put those 1,000 words together to explain why these rooms were pure genius. So here we go. Conservatories, also known as orangeries because they grew oranges in them, were useful for the conservation of plants throughout the year that would not otherwise survive outdoors, obviously. But it's far more sophisticated and aesthetically pleasing than just a mere greenhouse. Sure, they allowed for the growing of citrus trees and such, supplying the owners with a reliable source of vitamin C. But unlike a detached greenhouse, some of them were detached, but the ones I'm talking about, they were incorporated into the living space of the mansions as a living room in the truest sense of the word. These rooms are designed to be enjoyed and used by people for a variety of reasons that may have contributed to good health more than you might expect, especially in winter months when they provide the ideal space for improving physical and mental fitness. They were warm, humid, brightly illuminated environments that counteracted any effects of winter that could lead to what's known today as seasonal affective disorder. When the sun hangs low in the sky for fewer hours of the day behind more clouds, every year, the glass walls and glass ceilings made up for much of the lack of light in the way that light therapy lamps do nowadays, but without the need for electricity. In an age before that, before jet setters had electricity or even jets to escape the winter blues, they had these rooms to escape to. A proper conservatory engaged all the senses with exactly what was needed and pleasing to both body and mind. So I'll go through the 5 senses and we'll see why these things were genius, but also there's more to it. So touch. The humidity of the rooms mitigated the need for lotions, probably. And many of these rooms had fountains with running water that produces negative ions. That's something we know now that has been found to have beneficial properties for respiratory and overall health. Plus, the sound of running water adds to the calming and relaxing feel of being closer than anything like nature related when stuck inside. The plants themselves required some maintenance, so depending on who did it, it provided somebody a chance to do some trimming and touching up, at least physically engaging these verdant, green, living things, whilst everything outside is dead or dormant. So that's touch. Now we're going to talk about light or sight. So natural light brightens moods. So midday summer sun would be about the only time the rooms would have been at all unpleasant, I think, due to the excessive light and heat, maybe, without some kind of shading, which I think was an added bonus feature in some, if it was incorporated. But the rest of the year, and especially late fall through springtime, the brightness would have been a godsend to have. We're now still learning how vital natural sunlight is for health in so many ways. One way being it preserves good vision. This is best seen in changing rates of vision impairments in Chinese populations, for example, due to the decreased time spent outdoors when whole communities have been relocated to urban centers. So you have a steady genetic pool. Some of the people were relocated, some weren't, from rural regions. The people relocated from the rural regions within a generation experience a bunch of visual impairment versus the ones that were out in the countryside, outside all the time. The rural people, the urban people, experienced the impairment. So a few decades of urban indoor living can change the percentage of the people who need glasses from somewhere around 10% to, I think it was over 60%. So we talked about sound a little bit, but beyond the running water already mentioned, plants are pretty quiet. But that doesn't mean that plants themselves don't like to hear things. I don't know how they do because they don't have ears. But apparently, sound does affect plant health. I don't know how the sound of running water affects plants. I imagine it's probably good. But it has been suggested or shown in certain studies that music enhances the vitality of many species. The best examples of these architectural wonders often featured inbuilt pipe organs, which not only regaled the residents of the home with music, depending on who played it, but many may have been used on purpose to benefit the plants themselves. I can imagine somebody playing the Bach toccata. I can imagine it being played by a homeowner/vampire on a pipe organ, but tuned to A equals 432 hertz. It probably would have been a nice thing, at least for the plants, not for whoever was going to be murdered. But I could be reaching a bit. Let's talk about smell. Let's talk about smell, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Smell. So I don't know whether the word petrichor was used back then. I don't think so. But I imagine the pleasant smell of fresh water on the soil and plants would have added to the overall experience of being closer to nature than anything else found indoors. When there's droplets on damp soil, or when water engages with a porous surface of soil, and the water forms small bubbles which float to the surface and release aerosols that carry the scent that we know as petrichor. And they're just little chemicals and things in there that the human nose is sensitive to and can detect it as low as, I think it says 0.4 parts per billion. And the people who believe in evolution, which I don't, say the evolutionary theory has made it so that humans naturally appreciate and like the scent of rain because it meant better chances for survival, whatever. I think it's just nice. I don't have to go into the evolutionary failed hypotheses to explain why. It's nice. You know it's nice. You already know that. So why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't everybody have it? And finally, for the fifth but not final sense, because there are at least six. The sixth sense for me is the sense of humor. But taste. The Orangeries obviously provided a source of fresh fruits, like oranges, but probably vegetables, herbs, and such, right at home. When going out or importing them or canning or storing wasn't as convenient or as effective. Who doesn't like fresh fruit? I imagine the best methods used for enhancing superior quality of growth, such as music, somehow they knew that. I don't know. I bet they made better produce than you can get at the grocery store, even in the organic, maybe organic heirloom fruits and vegetables may be better nowadays, but I don't know. I doubt it. I think these would have been probably just about the best, better than anything. I have to speculate that the fruits and vegetables harvested in these rooms were second to none. I just have to. So those are the ones incorporated in the homes. We haven't seen a lot of them. These mansions were destroyed, so many of them. But I'm showing you some examples. I'll show you some of the best examples, the biggest ones, the most flamboyant and dramatic ones were the so-called crystal palaces of the world fairs and expositions. And I've covered those before. I have other videos on the channel about those. But have a look, enjoy the sights, and imagine the smells, enjoy the sounds, I guess, and imagine the taste and the touch of these rooms. And why not preserve them? I don't know why they were destroyed. In one case, somebody destroyed one, but it took a lot of work to tear it down. It was built so strong. A lot of them, they say, burned down. Some of the biggest examples, like the Crystal Palaces. I don't know how glass and iron and concrete can burn, but that's what the theme is of these things. I think it is almost like a marker of, hey, there's something really, really valuable here. Some of these were heated by geothermal, which I have covered before, but can you imagine how wonderful of an environment those would be? I don't have to imagine very hard. There is one here where I live in Toledo, Ohio area. There's a nice one at the Toledo Zoo that is great to visit around this time of year. And hopefully, if you are in the cold weather, where it's very cold right now, single digits, as I record this, I think anybody living in this polar blast would appreciate the idea and thoughts of this. And maybe if you are a person of great means, or you at least have some decision-making power and building and remodeling of structures, dwellings, considering an orangery with a pipe organ and a fountain, I think would be worthwhile. I think it's very healthy, even though we can theoretically jet south in the winter if you're in the northern hemisphere. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.